Welcome back to the Base Talk podcast. I am your host, Jacob Billingsley, owner and founder of Base Sports Performance in Hernando, Mississippi. In this episode, we are going to be discussing what to do in season to keep your body feeling fresh and healthy. All right. Welcome back to the podcast. So as I mentioned, today we are going to be discussing in-season topics and in-season training to keep your body feeling healthy and fresh. So this is really going to be geared towards our high school athletes and then our collegiate athletes, and hopefully our professional athletes probably already have a handle on this. But primarily the high school athletes is the ones that I want to speak to here today. And the ones that we get normally, for the most part, are athletes that kind of understand the development process. They understand the long term and they understand the long game. They know that they need to be, training throughout the year, 12 months out of the year in order to reach their full potential. But there's a handful of them that we still kind of get that will, work really, really hard for 3 to 4 months in the off season. And then as soon as their season begins, they stop training, and then they wonder why, they're not feeling as good, or they wonder why, they're getting a little bit slower or their power's dropping. And it's because that's not how training works, right? Training is a nonstop thing. Your body will adapt to what you give it. So if you work really, really hard, 3, 4, even 6 months, and then all of a sudden we stop training for 10 to 12 to 14 weeks in season, well, our body is going to adapt to that, right? We no longer need as much strength because there's no stimulus being put on it, like there was when we were training. We no longer need as much power or speed or mobility because we're not training, those things specifically. Now, yes, obviously in some sports, we are still hitting max effort sprints here and there. So that's probably not going to diminish as quickly. But we're probably kind of missing out on the strength development piece. And, when you're in high school, it feels like you have, forever for your athletic career. And in reality, your athletic window is very, very short. If you, kind of go from the bird's eye view again, and you're looking at the window of your athletic career, most of our athletes that are going to play college, whatever sport it is, soccer, baseball, softball, volleyball, football, whatever sport that is, most of them are going to play 3 years in high school, and then they're going to play 2 to 4 more years in college. We're talking about 6 to 7 years total, right? 6 to 7 years total. And you can argue that 2 to 3 of those years, when you're in high school, your body is still not matured, right? You're not completely developed. So now we're talking about another 2 to 3 of those 7 years where your body is not even mature. So we're talking about 4 years potentially of being able to have an athletic career where you can maximize your athletic potential and your skill level at your highest level. And the reason that I'm spending so much time on painting that picture is that a lot of athletes think that they have forever with their athletic career, and they do not. It is such a short window of opportunity to get better and to maximize your potential. And if you're an athlete that is looking to play professionally, there's already such a slim chance of that happening just from a number standpoint, right? And for those of you that actually do have an opportunity to do that, we can't waste 10 to 14 weeks in season of not training, right? We have to take advantage of every single opportunity that we are given to develop our bodies physically, athletically, whether it is a mobility enhancement or, a strength gain or a power gain or speed or, reactivity, whatever it is, those things have to be trained, and we have to push that to the limit. And we cannot take off for, 2 to 3 to 4 months because we're worried about in-season play, right? High school is about development. And once you know where you're going, especially I'm talking to specifically the ones that have already committed to their colleges and, they're kind of worried about their play in high school, obviously we want to play great, right? We want to have good stats. We want to win. We want to do all these things. But if you're an athlete that is looking to maximize their potential at the collegiate or professional levels, we have to understand that high school is about development. Those years, development, both from a physical standpoint and a skill standpoint, is by far more important than winning a baseball game or winning a soccer game or a volleyball match or whatever, right? We have to take advantage of that small window in time to physically develop our bodies, to develop our skill level, and build a good, strong base for what we are looking to do in college and professional athletes. Now, obviously, again, if you're just an athlete that wants to have a really good high school career and maybe you want to play 1 to 2 years at a junior college or something like that, sure, right? We don't have to focus on development as much, right? You can kind of enjoy the now and you can play for the wins now because that's not your goal. But for those athletes that are looking to play at the highest level of collegiate, sports and then even into professional sports, you have got to take advantage of that small amount of time that you have to develop. Because if you do not, and you take those 3 to 4 months off, that's 3 to 4 months of every single year. That's a fourth of the year, a third to a fourth of the year, regardless, a fourth of the year that we're losing out on development time. And we cannot do that because, like I've already mentioned, we only have 4 to 6, possibly 7 years of actually playing that sport. And if we're taking a third or a fourth of every year off because we don't want to train in season, because we think it's going to make us sore or we think that it's going to make us tired or whatever, we're missing out on so much development time that those athletes that are real and that understand the process and understand that their careers matter from in-season training, and that your training regimen, your training schedule does not change because of an in-season, those guys and girls are getting ahead of those athletes that are taking time off during the season from training. So that's kind of the main point that I want to make early on, and then I'm going to kind of give you guys some thoughts on what you can be doing, is that your athletic career is short. You have got to take advantage of every single second, every single day, every single minute of training and development while you can. Because if you sit on the sidelines from a physical development standpoint and you take 3 to 4 months off of every year, that is not setting you up to reach your full max potential as far as an athletic career standpoint. So I wanted to paint that picture to start with. The second thing I want to talk about is kind of what should it look like? What can we do? And one thing that I do want to be very clear on is that, a lot of people think that a good strength training regimen should make you sore. And that's not the case, right? Soreness is the byproduct of additional muscle fatigue, additional muscle rip, right? Where we are damaging the muscle. If you're in the weight room, hopefully we're doing that on purpose. But if you have a coach, a strength and conditioning coach or a sports performance coach that understands stress load management, you can have a strength training regimen that does not put too much stress on your body to where we're not worried about soreness, right? We can maintain our strength levels. We can maintain our power levels. We can maintain our mobility, our stability, our speed, all of that. We can maintain all of that and not get sore. And that's why we have a strength and conditioning coach. That's why we have a sports performance coach to go to and allow them to write your program, allow them to help you through that process. That is what we dedicate our careers to. That's something that we study at Base Sports Performance, our coaches do. And we can put together a routine that not only doesn't make you sore, but keeps you fresh throughout the entire season, right? We've all heard that quote, or if you haven't, you're about to. The best ability is availability, right? And if we get 4-6 weeks into the season and then all of a sudden we're getting banged up because, we're no longer training and we're not as strong and our muscles and ligaments can't handle the amount of stress we're putting on it in season, well, then we're not available anymore, right? The best ability is availability. So being able to maintain your strength levels and power levels and speed is not only going to help you maximize your athletic potential long term, but it's also going to help you in that current season. You're going to maintain everything that you've gained in the off season. And if you're smart and if you have time and if you trust the process, especially, if you have a coach or an organization that can help you from a training standpoint, they're going to help you actually increase those numbers in season without being fatigued and without being sore and things like that. So that's literally the job of these coaches, is to help you put together a plan to where you're not sore and you're not fatigued and you're not getting tired. So what a really good in-season, split would look like, if that's, the word we want to call it, is 2 to 3 days of full body training. Okay. So that's very vague, but what I mean by that is, in season, obviously our skill practice and our skill work is increased dramatically, the volume, right? Let's just use baseball as an example. We're swinging more, we are throwing more, we're running more, we're doing a lot of things on the field a lot more than we were in the off season. So when that playing volume increases, the volume in the weight room, so the training volume, decreases, right? But it does not go to zero. We decrease the reps that we do. We decrease the volume that we do. But what we want to do is hit the minimum effective dose from an adaptation standpoint, meaning, in the off season, we might go, again, this is just an example, we might go 3 sets of 8 of an exercise because we want to build some volume, we want to build some strength and capacity around that joint. And in season, we might go like 2 sets of 5 because we are trying to maintain that force. We're not necessarily trying to push that force, right? In some cases, if we have athletes that aren't playing as much as they would like to, we can go ahead and push that a little bit more, right? So instead of going down to 2 sets of 5 with an athlete that is not playing as much as they'd like, we might go, 3 sets of 5, or we might go 2 sets of 8. We're going to adjust that volume for each of those athletes individually, depending on, their circumstance. But I think, again, what the picture I'm trying to paint is, just because we are in season and you don't want to be sore and you don't want to be fatigued and you want to be fresh for those outings, you're not seeing how your body works. You're not seeing the full development. And to kind of help you wrap your mind around this a little more, I want you to think about, baseball players that are in the MLB, okay? They have 152 or 162 games a year, right? We're playing 9 months out of the year, 8-9 months, whatever that looks like. Do you think that those professional athletes that play 6 days a week are not strength training for 8 to 9 months per year? No, that is not how that works. They are getting their 2 to 3 lifts in per week. They're quick lifts. They are hitting, what they need to hit. They're hitting, 2 to 3 sets of a couple exercises that are going to help maintain their strength, their power, their speed, and also help to maintain their mobility, because they understand, I can't just take off this amount of time, because if I do, my performance is going to drop. My performance is going to diminish. I have to maintain what I've built, and not only maintain, I have to continue to get better, because again, even though they are professional athletes and that is what they do for a living, they still understand that their careers are limited, right? There's only a handful of guys and girls that can play, sports until they're 30s and 40s years old, right? There's only a certain amount of athletes that can do that. Most of us are only playing until we're, young 20s, if that. And by that time, your body is just now getting physically developed to where, you can maximize your potential. So you have got to take advantage of the time while you have it. So 2 to 3 days in season, 30, 45 minutes, an hour tops, right? There's no need to go in there and bang out 3 days of 90-minute sessions, right? We can come in those 2 days. We can hit a quick mobility routine. We can hit some arm care if you're, a baseball player. We can hit, 1 to 2 lower body, 1 to 2 upper body, and then we can help with some stability or, some sort of arm care variation. Again, if you're a baseball player, we can do all that in 45 minutes twice a week, and you can be far ahead of your competition that's not training in season just by doing that twice a week. Another thing that's important to think about is that in season, the schedule changes so much, right? Like if you normally play Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, or let's say you play Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays, right? and that's your normal schedule. There's eventually going to be a game that gets rained out, or, that snows, or, whatever. Something happens and a game, gets postponed. Well, obviously, we can't plan for that, right? We don't know that that's going to happen. So an important thing to note here is that off days are going to be provided to you, right? Just because our schedule says that we're training 4 days a week, eventually there's going to be a day where you don't get an option. You're going to take off, right? There's going to be no game that day because of something else. So those off days will be provided to you. So there's no need to plan for that as far as like not training, right? If we select 2 days a week and those are going to be our 2 training days, it should not matter whether, if you're a starting pitcher in baseball, if you're starting that day and you do a training session before you lift, that should not matter at all if you have set things up correctly and your body is recovering and you're eating and sleeping and recovering the ways that you do, right? That would actually probably help you from a central nervous system standpoint. When I was in college and professional baseball, there's a bunch of guys that will get a pregame lift, and they actually feel better, right? They lift before the game. They feel better in the game because their central nervous system, is pumping, it's firing, and, their energy levels are up. They're feeling good. They're feeling loose. And then the next day, they're not sore, right? And all of a sudden, we've now mixed in, a pregame lift. Then we played that night, and we're no longer, any more fatigued than we were just because we've stayed on schedule with our training. So make sure that you stay on schedule, but also understand that those off days are going to be randomly provided to you just because of the nature of the sports, how the seasons work, and how the cancellations and postpones and things like that happen. Again, for those elite athletes, make sure that you are understanding and looking at the long-term game for your development, but also understand that long-term might only get you to 21, 22 years old. If you're lucky, you can get into the mid-20s, and obviously, again, there's a handful of guys and girls that get to play, beyond that, but understand that it is a short window, but we need to play the long game. We don't need to just play for right now, right? Because, again, if you're a junior in high school and you're a pitcher that throws 82 miles an hour and we decide we don't want to train in season because we really want to go out and pitch well that year, well, you throw 82 miles an hour. It does not matter how well you pitch, right? You've got to be able to maximize your potential in order to set yourself up to give yourself options both at the collegiate and professional level. So you have to understand that just because we want to go out and compete at 82 miles an hour, even if you compete really well, it's not going to matter that much if you're looking to play at a high caliber college or professional ball. We have got to take a step back, and we've got to understand that we can only do so much with so little, right? You've got to build the engine before we can use it, right? We can't just go use all the gas if there's no engine to use, meaning our body has to be built for the season. Our body has to be built up in order to maximize our athletic potential. We can't take time off from throwing or training, strength training. We can't take time off from that in order to just go throw because we want to compete well. You've got to understand how it works long term, and you've got to set yourself up to physically be able to compete long term and to continue to get better and stronger as you go. Two last things here that I want to make sure that we hit is power. So power is the name of the game in baseball specifically. Really all team sports, soccer, basketball, baseball, softball, volleyball, power, right? Everything that's quick and fast, okay? So according to the NSCA, power detrains every 5 days, roughly, meaning power is all relative. So we're talking about, rotational power, lower body vertical power, lower body horizontal power, lower body lateral power, upper body power, right? There's different planes of power. And if we don't train those, every 5 days, detraining happens, meaning your power levels, think of it like a battery on your phone. Instead of it being at 100%, every 5 days, if we don't charge it up, if we don't train, it's going to back down just a little bit. It's going to back down to 95%. And then another 5 days we don't train, we're going to back down to 90%. And all of a sudden, the capacity that we can that we can produce is now only 90% instead of 100%. So you are literally losing power if you don't train. Again, in season, you're going to get some stuff. If you're baseball, you're going to get rotational power from throwing. You're going to get rotational power from swinging. If you are sprinting max effort, you're going to get some lower body power from there, right? But those other powers have to be continually hit to maintain those. Because again, according to the NSCA, every 5 days, power begins to diminish, and you're going to lose that. Power is extremely hard to get back once you've lost it. And if we take 10 to 14 weeks off of power training, we are going to be far behind. It's going to take at least that amount of time to get back where we were, and then even more time to build higher power outputs than that. And then the last thing here is from a mobility standpoint. Again, this is kind of for our higher level high school and collegiate athletes. Mobility is something that definitely gets diminished in season, right? Whether you're, again, a pitcher or a baseball player, thoracic spine rotation one side. You can rotate really well one way, but we're kind of losing some mobility to rotate the other way. Or maybe it's shoulder range of motion, or if you're a soccer player, maybe it's like ankle range of motion or hip range of motion. Mobility is going to be diminished in season if it's not trained. One important thing that I want to note here is if you have a quality strength training program and you are going through these exercises the correct way and you have a coach there to help you, strength training helps maintain that mobility. So not only are we continuing to gain strength, we're continuing to maintain and gain power, but we are also, by strength training, we are also maintaining and even adding mobility, right? So just by strength training, you're hitting and filling all these different buckets that are going to continue to help you in season. So one last thing here that I want to recap is that in season, you have got to continue to train. And if your answer is that you do not want to be sore or you do not want to be fatigued in season, you send us an email, send us a text, let us know, and we will help you with a program. Because if you have a proper program, you will not be fatigued and you will not be sore. We can put something together that is going to help you be efficient, help you continue to maintain and improve all of those things that we discussed throughout the season. And then now all of a sudden, now postseason, we're done with the season, we're feeling good. Now we don't have to take another 2-3 months to rebuild what we just lost. We can pick right back up, continue to strength train, continue to gain strength, power, speed throughout the rest of our career. So I hope that helped. I hope this made sense. If you have questions or comments, please feel free to shoot us an email, shoot us a text, let us know. If you're not a local athlete and you're not close to us, but you are interested in working with us, we help remote programs. So we have an online database of videos where we can put a program together for you. We have a coach that will work with you and continue to help you maintain and continue to actually gain strength and power and speed and mobility throughout the season so you can maximize your full potential. Thanks for listening today. If you got something positive from this podcast, please feel free to share it. If there's something that you want to hear about in the next topic, reach out to us, let us know. Other than that, thanks for listening today, and we will see you in the next one.